Welcome, everyone, to the Apoco-Larry podcast. I'm Steve. He is
Dr. Lawrence Van Beek.
Yes, we're back from a little hiatus.
Yes.
Good to see you, my friend.
Thank you.
Your haircut.
Always glad to be here.
Your haircut looks great.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, it looks lovely.
Makes the hair look a little darker.
Yeah, nothing like some quality content for an audio medium. Anyway, not to mention that Larry does look great, but we're going to talk about judges tonight, my friend. And I was just judging your wonderful haircut. So
we are. So the Book of Judges, Stephen, it's a fairly long book with long chapters.
Yeah.
But it's a very basic message. So the Book of Judges happens after the death of Joshua. And you and I were just talking. We were saying probably the mid-1200s is a good way to say. Joshua died.
Yep.
And then after that, first couple of chapters seem to be going okay. And after that, God has to raise up judges.
Yeah.
So best when you're reading Judges to have a map of the conquest that is at the back of your Bible. If you have a Bible, if you have an online Bible, I don't know what they do. I don't know how you see it on your phone. But at the back you'll see. Remember they went in and they took over the land, and a couple of tribes stayed on the west side of the Jordan, and the rest were on the east side of the Jordan, or it's the other way around. But anyway, and so all of the different tribes were divided up, right? And after Joshua passed away, then the people in these different areas. So it's not all of Israel in the Book of Judges. It's like Judah has a judge, and a judge wasn't a judge like a guy in a court. A judge was a judge like a military political leader.
Okay.
Who also did judging, right? Because that's sort of the way Moses did it too, right? He led them and he did judging and he did work, and these people did the same thing. And so so different judges were in different places in Israel, and they were protecting them from different groups of people that were fighting them.
Okay.
Yeah. And so like the Philistines were a big part of it. Now the Philistines came into the land with the migration of the Sea Peoples. And the migration of the Sea Peoples, everybody figures, happened in around 1200 BC.
Okay. So just before this.
Yes. Yeah. Probably, 50 years before this.
Okay.
That the Philistines came in and they were very powerful people, very barbaric, very powerful. And they set up 5 cities, Ashdod and Escalon and these other cities that they set up. And so Israel was supposed to go in and clean out all the Canaanites. And you find out in the first chapter that they just weren't getting it done. They weren't getting the Canaanites out of there. They weren't cleaning up the land. And so they talk about the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And the Perizzites, from the thing that I read, they think they were just like the rural Canaanites. And the other guys were more city people. And Israel was supposed to take this over. So what you've got in the Book of Judges is a period of about 360 years.
Okay.
And it's broken up into, once you get into the thing, it's broken up into a series of what we call it's sin. It's slumber. It's slumber, sin, servitude. What is it again? Slumber, sin, servitude, sorrow, supplication, salvation. So they're sinning, and then God punishes them, right? And then they're into slavery or servitude, and then they start crying out to God, and God comes back and saves them, and then they come back around, and then they start living like the Canaanites again, and then it's that's the slumber. Right. Yep. And then it's servitude again, and then salvation, and then, supplication, and salvation again. So, and it just keeps happening like this over and over through the Book of Judges.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the end of the Book of Judges, it's mentioned several times in the last chapters of Judges. Every man did what was right in his own eyes.
Yes.
For Israel had no king.
Right.
So they figure that Judges was written during the period of the Davidic kingdom, because they would never have said Israel had no king if they never knew that Israel did have a king.
Right.
It's sort of like the First World War was never called the First World War. It was called the Great War.
Yeah.
Because no one knew there was going to be another one.
Yeah.
At least they sure hope not.
Wait till the second act. You'll really enjoy that one.
Oh, yeah. And then the third one, on the way, that's the big one.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening in this book. It's the people disobeying God, living for themselves, and God having to raise up these judges to deliver them. And the judges aren't always wonderful spiritual people either.
No.
I mean, Jephthah, the one they call the foolish judge. The one guy I was listening to said he was pretty much mafia.
Yeah.
What he was.
Lived up to his name.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that's what it's all about. And we're in chapter 1.
All right, folks. So for you who are playing the...
Oh, by the way.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
No, not at
The
all.
very last judge that you get is actually Samuel, but he gets his own book,
Yes.
or 2 of them.
Yeah.
Depending on whether you're Jewish or some Protestant Christian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Folks, if you're playing the at-home edition, you can open up your Bibles to Judges chapter 1, and we'll start at verse 1. Why not? Let's start at verse 1. And Larry will stop me whenever he wants, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
After the death of Joshua, the Israelites asked the Lord, "Who of us is to go up first to fight the Canaanites?" The Lord answered, "Judah shall go up. I have given the land into their hands." The men of Judah then said to the Simeonites, sorry, I said that wrong, Simeonites.
Yeah, not the luggage.
Yes,
Or the
Samsonites.
floor-
He said to
floor
the
cover.
Samsonites, come on, you hard-sided people. Their fellow Israelites, come up with us into the territory allotted to us to fight against the Canaanites. We in turn will go with you to yours. So the Simeonites, I really want to call them the Samsonites from now on, but anyway, so the Simeonites went with them. When Judah attacked, the Lord gave the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hands, and they struck down 10,000 men at Bezek. It was there they found Adonai Bezek, which isn't that God Bezek? Isn't it Adonai? Anyway.
Yeah, leader of Bezek. Yeah.
Okay. And fought against him, putting to rout the Canaanites and the Perizzites. Adonai Bezek fled, but they chased him and caught him and cut off his thumbs and big toes. Now that's nasty. That's just downright nasty.
Oh, yeah, we should have mentioned that. This is a gruesome book.
Yeah.
This book is gruesome.
Nasty. Then Adonai Bezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes cut off have picked up scraps under my table. Now God has paid me back for what I did to them. They brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. The men of Judah attacked Jerusalem and also took it. They put the city to the sword and set it on fire.
Yeah. So this isn't their first foray. This is them continuing to clean up the Canaanites like they were supposed to. Remember when they went into Canaan, God said, they've done evil in my sight to Joshua. Let's go in and let's annihilate these people. Which, I mean, is really, really harsh to a modern reader.
Right.
Probably pretty harsh to any reader.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, that was what they were supposed to do. So they went in, and now they're still continuing what Joshua had began, and they're fighting the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And they found this one leader, Adonai Bezek, which is God of Bezek or Lord of Bezek would be the way you translate, just like you did, Steve.
Yep.
And when he runs away, they catch him and they cut off his thumbs and his big toes. And that's it's a symbolic thing to say that you are no longer of any value. You wouldn't be allowed into military service without your thumbs and big toes. And I've also had people tell me, and I don't know how true this is, but if you've grown up with big toes and you cut them off, that it's really hard on your balance. Yeah. And your thumbs, it's hard to fight without the thumbs.
Right.
The opposable thumbs are, what kept cows from taking over the world, according to Gary Larson. So that's what's happened here. And then they go back and they fight Jerusalem again. They go to take over Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Now, The Jebusites were the ones that were in Jerusalem, and they had a terrible time. They couldn't get them out, and so this is the one place they do. But then the Jebusites, then they make that fake deal, so that
Right.
they're not annihilated. They're put into servitude, but not annihilated.
Right.
Yeah.
The history of Israel. Verse 9 now. After that, Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites living in the hill country, the Negev and the western foothills. They advanced against the Canaanites living in Hebron, formerly called a name there, and defeated.
Kiryat Arba.
Thank you, because I wasn't even going to try it. And they defeated Shishai,
Yeah, sounds good.
Athaman, and Talmai,
Yeah.
something like that. From there, they advanced against the people living in Debir, formerly called that other thing that Larry said.
Kiryat Sefer.
Yeah. And Caleb said, I will give my daughter Ashka in marriage to the man who attacks and captures the city. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So the son of this guy,
Yeah,
Caleb's
which is
younger brother,
Othniel is actually fairly important.
Othniel,
Yeah, and
of
he's the son of
Kenaz.
Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother.
Caleb's younger brother, took it. So Caleb gave his daughter to Ashkai to him in marriage. Aksha. My gosh.
Axa. Yeah, his lovely daughter Axa.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever.
So basically, therefore, she married her uncle, right? That's
Yeah.
Caleb's brother, and his daughter married her uncle. Yeah,
Weird.
little okay in those days.
Yeah.
Little less okay now.
Yeah. One day, she came to Othniel.
Othniel.
She urged him to ask her father for a field. When she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, What can I do for you? She replied, Do me a special favor. Since you've given me land in the Negev, also give me springs of water. So Caleb gave her the upper and lower springs. The descendants of Moses' father-in-law, the Kenite, went up from the city of palms with the people of Judah to live among the inhabitants of the desert of Judah in Negev near Arad.
Yeah, so these people. So Othniel got these upper and lower springs, and then some of Moses' people. Remember, Moses' father-in-law was a Kenite, and they were metal workers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But not related to the nation of Israel, right? Like his father-in-law is separate, right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah, and what the relationship is, it's hard to really tell, except that they were quite involved in what Israel did.
Yeah.
They were a good neighbor, really.
Yeah. Sounds like they were tolerated.
Yeah.
Okay, so verse 17. Then the men of Judah went with the Samsonites. I got to do it. And their fellow Israelites attacked the Canaanites living in Zephath, and they totally destroyed the city. Therefore, it was called Hormah.
And Hormah means destroyed, by the way.
Oh, okay. All I see is Hormel.
Yeah.
Judah also took Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron, each city within its territory.
Okay, so at this point in the Judges, they actually took over. They actually took over 3 of the main cities of the Philistines: Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron. They had 5 cities, and 3 of them they took over in these battles.
Yeah. Wow.
Now that's going to turn around because the Philistines are going to insist later on that nobody is allowed to make. They're not allowed to have farm implements because they could turn them into swords.
Right.
And things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
It made their life very difficult.
Yes. No wonder why they rose up.
But at this point, they're doing fairly well. Things
Yeah.
are going well.
Yeah. Verse 19. The Lord was with the men of Judah, and they took possession of the hill country, but they were unable to drive the people from the plains because they had chariots fitted with iron. As Moses promised, Hebron was given to Caleb, who drove from it the 3 sons of Anak. The Benjaminites, however, did not drive out the Jebusites who were living in Jerusalem, and to this day, Jebusites lived there with the Benjamites.
Yeah, which makes you think it's a little bit before David's time,
Mm-hmm.
because David actually took over Jerusalem and made it his capital.
Right.
So that's something that's good for people to just remember. The capital cities, Jerusalem was not the capital until David gets on the scene.
Right. Okay. Verse 22. Now the tribes of Joseph attacked Bethel and the Lord was with them. When they sent men to spy out Bethel, formerly called Luz, the spies saw a man coming out of the city, and they said to him, "Show us how to get into the city, and we will see to it that you are treated well." So he showed them, and they put the city to the sword, but spared the man and his whole family.
Yeah, which is kind of funny. Like, it's actually, because you're reading it from Israel's point of view, he's a wonderful man, and they saved him and his family.
Yeah.
If you're reading it from the Canaanite point of view, he's a jerk traitor.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird that way, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure
But we are reading it from Israel's point of view.
Yeah. History is written by the victors. Verse 20.
And don't forget, this is Israel going in and taking over the land that they are all fighting about right now.
Yes.
When they say the land was historically theirs, it wasn't until this period of time. It belonged to the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Philistines were there.
Yeah.
But later on, the Philistines were there. But so it's kind of funny that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Verse 26. Then he went to the land of the Hittites.
Don't worry. I still believe it belongs to Israel, and they should have it now.
Okay.
Yes. in case anybody thinks I don't think that.
Yeah. Then he went to the land of the Hittites, where he built a city and called it Luz, which is its name to this day. So he just moved Luz over. Hey, Luz.
Yeah, he moved over and rebuilt Luz.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that name so much, but not for this one. This one I want Bethel.
Right. It sounds like a type of soap to me.
Yeah, that's right. Have you tried new and improved Luz? What? Verse 27 now.
And the Hittites, by the way, were a very important people in those days.
Yeah. Well, they constantly had trouble with the Hittites, didn't they?
I don't know if they had trouble with the Hittites. The Hittites had some laws that the Israelites that actually totally mimic the Israelite laws, and we think that maybe their laws were used in the Israelite communities. Yeah, okay. I think Hammurabi was a Hittite. But now I got to go back and check because
I'm going to go with that. We're going to go with that.
Yeah, we can go and check and make sure.
Yeah. Verse 27. But Manasseh did not drive out the people of Bethshan, Tanich, which I think I've been there. No, Sanich. I'm thinking of Sanich.
Well, I love Sanich.
Sanich. Yeah, me too. Dor, or Duar. Ibleam. I'm just going to butcher these intentionally now. Megiddo and their surrounding settlements, for the Canaanites were determined to live in that land. When Israel became strong, they pressed the Canaanites into forced labor, but never drove them out completely. Nor did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites living in Gezer, but the Canaanites continued to live there among them. Neither did Zebulun drive out the Canaanites living in Kitron or Nahal. Whatever. So these Canaanites lived among them, but Zebulun did subject them to forced labor, which seems a common theme. Nor did Asher drive out those living in Echo, or Sidon, or Alab, or Akaz, a whole bunch of other cities. I'm not going there. The Asherites lived among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land because they did not drive them out. Neither did Naphtali drive out those living in Beth Shemesh, Beth Anath, but the Naphalites too lived among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land, and among those living in Beth Shemesh and Beth Anath became forced laborers for them. The Amorites confined the Danites to the hill countries, but not allowing them to come into the plain. The Amorites were determined to also hold in the Mount Heres and other places, but the power of the tribes of Joseph increased, and they too were pressed into forced labor. The boundary of the Amorites was from the Scorpion Pass to Selah and beyond.
Yeah. Crazy, eh? Yeah. So what you find here is what God had commanded is that they drive these people right out of the land and that they own the land. But they never drove them all the way out.
No.
And it's actually, I always thought about the Jebusites in Jerusalem, but it's actually all over the place. They allowed the Canaanites to still live there.
Right.
And you figure this is a brand new land to them. They're gonna plant in this land. The Canaanites are gonna say, well, it's always worked very well for us because we serve these gods. And They go, oh well, let's give that a shot. We'll serve and so that was where the downfall came for the Israelites, is that instead of, for a while, they were doing okay and they forced them into labor. But then they were marrying their women. There was intermarriage. I shouldn't say they were marrying their women. There was intermarriage starts happening. They're starting to live like the Canaanites. And this is what gives them complete disfavor with God. And that is the beginning of the problems that are going to happen for the next 360 years.
Right. In a sense, this is the start of that sin cycle. Starts right here.
Mm-hmm. By not fully obeying God in the command that He did. Yeah, that messes them up for all of these years. But the stuff that was asked of them was pretty harsh stuff.
Right.
But in those days, it wasn't such a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think it's as big a deal. It's only a big deal when life is good and life is easy and we can be soft. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
They say the people of certain places around the world, war is their life.
Yeah.
Just we've not had to be that way.
Right.
Particularly in Canada.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is the way the whole thing begins. It actually starts off not too bad, but at the end you find out that they didn't do what God had asked them to do. Yeah.
And it's interesting to me that as we step through this chapter, that it's not really clear that they did something wrong per se, but they just couldn't figure out how to get rid of them. Like they just simply couldn't. And whether that was they lost hope, they lost determination, I don't know, right? It's just interesting to say, they were just determined to live there.
It was easier to do this halfway than to do it the whole way.
Yeah. It makes you think to Samuel and
Saul.
And what's this bleating of sheep that I hear?
Yeah, I kept the sheep, and he kept some of the leaders too.
Yeah.
And that was his downfall. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, my friend. Folks, Larry has set the table for us. We're about to get a buffet of judges after this. But the first course is actually already on the table. We've seen already their sin. And it's that they haven't driven the people out, like Larry said. But it gets worse. Oh, don't worry. It gets worse.
Oh, yeah. It'll be much worse for them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And I can see people looking at us and looking at them and going, I can really see some parallels.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, here I was going to say there's nothing we can learn from Judges whatsoever because we don't go through the cycle of sin, repentance, and crying out to God. We don't do that at all.
Well, at least we haven't yet. I think we're only partway into the first cycle.
Yes. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take a little 1 week hiatus because I'm going to do some traveling. But we'll be back 2 weeks from tonight for those of you that actually are going to listen to this. Hopefully I'll get it out on Thursday. But anyway, we'll be back, not next Thursday, but the Thursday afterwards with chapter 2. We'll see more in Misadventures of Israel, which is really an interesting story that lasts for thousands of years, really, of Misadventures of Israel. But anyway, so thanks again. Until next time, I was Steve. He was Larry. This was the Apoco-Larry podcast.